Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host for this evening, Matt High, joined tonight by Chris and Rich. We are in week 15. It is playoff time. We are ready to go. Some of us have buys. Some of us have did not make the playoffs in other leagues, but hey, plenty to go around. So we'll start with you, Rich. How are we feeling this fantasy season?
It's been a ride, to say the least, but out of the four leagues, I've rolled into the playoffs with three of them. I've got one bye week there, so thankfully that is the one league that I need that bye week because that team is holding together by literally spit at this point. I've even run out of duct tape and things like that, so. But the other ones, yeah, hoping for the best. It's been fun. I don't know. I'm praying, man. But yeah.
How about you, Chris? How you feeling over there?
Feeling pretty good all around. I missed playoffs in a couple leagues, made them in most. I have a couple buys, so I'm feeling pretty good in our dynasty league. Number one, having a great time for the time being, at the very least, until I get curb stomped by some random Mostert 60-point game. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, all around feeling pretty good. Pretty excited for playoffs.
That has happened to me 2 years in a row in the finals. So I feel your pain. And one of them was this guy right here.
In fairness, I absolutely in a redraft league I was in. I think we were talking about before. I was the benefactor of the famous Jamar Chase 55-point game in the fantasy. I was the benefactor of that. So like I was on the other end where I benefited from some random player going God mode randomly for no reason. So it happens.
Yeah. And when it does, it's awful. Especially when, in my case, I was laying in my bed home from work, sick with COVID, watching Jamar Chase, thinking, hey, let's watch football. There's nothing else to do. Just, oh, touchdown. No, another 50-yard catch. Oh, touchdown. I'm like, oh my God, stop. This hurts. But we digress.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. That game made me sell my entire team and just go full tank mode. But oh well, we live and we learn, and I'll never go back. So, all right. So on tonight's show, we're gonna go over some start and sit decisions that you probably are going to have to think about for this week if you were not lucky enough to have the first round bye in playoffs. So we're gonna go a couple positions. There's a couple matchups. It might sway your opinion other way, so we'll see what the guys think here. And we're gonna start with our quick question, as always. So who's the one player that you do not want to face in the playoffs? Who do you look at your opposing team's roster and go, oh man, that's not gonna be fun? So Chris, we'll start with you.
So I have AJ Brown as the guy I don't want to go against for a lot of reasons. One, their next series of games is Seattle, New York Giants, and Arizona. Those are really bad defenses. But also, more importantly, not only is the New York Giants, just a rivalry matchup, but also they have to actually fight now for the first seed in the NFC East because if they lost to the Cowboys. So they need every win they can get. So they're going to be playing as hard as humanly possible. So I imagine a lot of high octane offense coming from the Eagles. So do not want to be in the front lines of whatever that is at all.
Yeah, the Eagles have been struggling a bit, but
Mhm.
I know AJ Brown. He's kind of just like that one player that goes nuclear out of nowhere.
Even last week he had 11.9 points, and they
Yeah.
they were struggling, and he's still. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
it's not like super incredible, but it's still serviceable.
Yeah, it's not like the next guy Rich is going to talk about. So, Rich, why don't we go with your guy?
Yeah. AJ Brown's definitely intimidating to look across as you know what he can do. But yeah, no, my guy's CeeDee Lamb. That stack with Dak, If you have it, congratulations. You know, I think I've said this previously. It's something to behold over there in Dallas. There seems to be chemistry that I think we all knew was coming. CeeDee Lamb is a force to be reckoned with, and every week I'm watching this guy just have his way with the field, the players getting into the end zone. I don't know, man. He's a great player, that's for sure. My hat's off to him. Dak is playing some good ball, so I mean, they're definitely humming. So yeah, looking across my opponent and I see CeeDee Lamb like I do this week, definitely upsets me.
He's scored in 5 straight games.
Let's not
So.
talk about it. What's yours?
Seems like someone's got a CeeDee Lamb on the other side in a couple matchups. I have CeeDee Lamb, and I gotta say, it didn't feel great in draft season to select him, just because I was a little nervous about how this offense was going to run. But man, I love it. It's fun. It's wonderful to have him a part of the colorblind army. It's my team name everywhere. So it's wonderful. The guy for me that I don't want him to meet in the playoffs because he can easily just drop 30 points at an just because he feels like it on this offense, and that is Mr. Debo Samuel. We saw it this week and last week. He just went off and he just puts the team on his back. Brock Purdy and the 49ers are just steamrolling people, and Debo is a huge part of it. Ever since he came back from injury, he's been just lights out. And watching him just have the ability to drop all those points against you is it brings back not so fun times, not so fun memories. And I think going forward, his matchups aren't the best for wide receivers, but they're not bad. And he's a player that doesn't really matter what the matchup is. You're going to play him with confidence, and probably 7 out of 10 times he's going to come out on the winning end. So seeing him is not too much fun. What do you guys think about the Samuel pick? The Niners look unstoppable right now. They're the favorites to win the Super Bowl for you guys too, right?
100%.
Dude,
I think at least.
as someone who has Brock Purdy, yeah, I love Debo Samuel. I mean, I only played against him on one of these blow up weeks that really crushed me, and we're not going to get into that because that's the league I'm out on. But other than that, I mean, yeah, no, I'm completely cool with it right now with Purdy as my quarterback. So yeah, I'm rocking it. Let's do it. Love it.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely terrifying. It's not. I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to be on the receiving end of 3 touchdowns, 200 whatever something yards of just madness from Debo Samuel. Definitely don't want to be on that end.
Yeah, I'm hoping my CeeDee Lamb, if I meet the team that has Debo in the finals in our redraft league, I'm hoping CD does enough to kind of nullify whatever he does to me, because it's not going to be fun.
I just actually looked at my phone to see if I was versing against Debo in any league. I'm not. We're good.
Congratulations, sir.
Very good.
That's a victory by itself.
Purdy all the way.
All right, so let's dive into some start sit stuff here. Got a couple. We'll try to rattle them off. I'll list them out and just let me know which side you like better, and maybe a reason or two why. So let's start at the quarterback position. We have Pat Mahomes against the Patriots this week. Chiefs, no doubt about it. They've been struggling on offense. The wide receiver room is very, very bad right now, and it's not been looking up the way we're used to in Kansas City. Or you have Matthew Stafford, who has been on fire the past few weeks, going up against not a great matchup, the best matchup for opposing quarterbacks against the Washington Commanders. So, Rich, I want to get your opinion first. Are you going Pat Mahomes, old reliable, thinking he's going to figure it out despite averaging about 18 fantasy points per game? or you going with the upside of Matt Stafford, who has Puka Nakua, who you don't like, and Cooper Cup. I gotta keep it going, man. I mean, we've been saying it every show. I gotta sneak it in. That's my thing here.
All
I gotta sneak
right.
into Puka.
All right.
Puka,
All right.
puka,
Fine.
puka.
Fine.
What are you thinking?
I mean, I am a little salty at Puka after literally being the reason why I'm not in 4 out of 4
But
playoffs.
for a
But
good
it's
reason,
okay.
because he's good.
It's all right. It's all right. Anyway, Matthew Stafford. That's my pick. That is who I'm going with. You know, it's the playoffs. You know, make it or win and you can carry on. You lose and you're out. Pat Mahomes has been playing not the best of ball. New England, they're in New England. It's a lower over under. I mean, you know, you're looking at LA playing against the Washington Commanders, and LA is favored. They're at home. It's way higher over under total. So I imagine points aplenty in that game, a lot of which I think are going to come from Matt Stafford throwing the ball. So Pat Mahomes, I think, ends up with just your typical floor game at best. So for me, I'm definitely riding Stafford this week for sure.
One thing I want to bring up first. I remember, like, we talked about this earlier in the season or last year. Start your studs. Would you classify right now Pat Mahomes as a stud? Because personally, I would not. There's too many things going wrong on that offense for me to think of him that way. Am I crazy
I mean,
for that? I know I'm
it's
crazy.
really. I mean, I think you got to view this in a different way. You know, Pat Mahomes is a stud for sure. I mean, absolutely, he is a bona fide stud. He can go out on Sunday and light up New England, and just because of just purely who he is and the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole. You know, I mean, I understand there's been woes and whatnot, but they can very much turn this around very quickly. I think. I mean, we do know who they are. You know, and Matt Stafford, I think, is not many far ticks below him, and especially this week with a great matchup. I think start your studs comes into effect when you're trying to decide between players like, um, you know, Will Levis is a questionable one. Sam Howell, I think, across the side, stuff like that. You know, I mean, players of question. A different tier of quarterback is where you still should start Pat Mahomes always. But you know, if you have Matt Stafford and Pat Mahomes on your bench in this scenario, I'd ride Matt Stafford this week.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because I know that's one of the questions. Like, oh, you got to start your studs, but it's just a different time right now. Chris, what are your thoughts? Which way you leaning here?
Definitely Matthew Stafford. I think if you have the choice between Mahomes or Stafford, I don't think either choice is bad. I want to preface by saying that, I feel like Mahomes will put up a fine day against the Patriots. I'm pretty confident that they'll win that game. I'm pretty confident that he'll throw a touchdown or two. As much the struggles are there for uh Kansas City. There we go. I don't know why I was blanking on the name. Uh, you know, he's still, as Richie said, he's still fantastic. But on the flip side, you have a guy who's been going off for a bit, Matthew Stafford, against, as you said, like the like the best defense for it, like so bad with two insane options to throw to. Actually, I should say three. I think Kyron Williams is a decent pass catching option for the team. Like he has three decent. Oh, and what's his face? That tight end, rookie tight end. Hold on. I just picked him up in our dynasty league. Give me one moment. I'll tell you his name. He's got him too. He's got four options to throw to. I mean, he did really good. Davis Allen. Yep, Davis
Yeah.
Allen. He's got three options. Four options to go to. I definitely am choosing Matthew Stafford against that horrendous Commanders defense. 100%.
All right, so you heard it here. Stafford over Mahomes, week 1 in the playoffs. All right, I got another quarterback here for you. Russell Wilson going up against the Detroit Lions, whose defense has been a little bit shaky. They've been allowing a lot of points as of late. Or Tua Tagovailoa versus the New York Jets. Now, Tyreek Hill right now is questionable with that ankle injury. He played through it, kind of. He was on and off the field, but this team is now in a slightly worried mode because the Bills are. There's a potential that in Week 18 we could get Bills Dolphins playing for the division, so they need to win. Is this a time where you're going to take Russell Wilson, go up against a slightly better matchup, or are we going to stick with Tua and think that the Dolphins are going to figure things out? Chris, we'll start with you on this one.
For me personally, this is a little dependent on a couple of things. I want to see a nice full practice from Tyreek Hill before like you'd make your full concrete decision, and even then I can understand like the obvious choice here for going by a statistical defensive matchup is Russell Wilson. However, you said it. They have to win. The last thing I actually remember, it was McDaniels was saying it in like a locker room. I forgot the exact record or whatever, but it's a pretty popular clip going on right now where he was saying that they had gotten to this, like it was like X and 3 or something, I believe it was. I can't remember exactly how many wins they had, but they were at that point last year, and they like lost out completely and just missed playoffs, and it was a horrible feeling. And they were at that position again, and he was saying that was the lesson for us, right? To take it with us now. And truthfully, I believe that they are going to play as hard as humanly possible. I'm hesitant to do this, but I think I would play Tua over Russell Wilson because I know they do not at all costs want to leave it up to that last game, if at all possible. And the only way they can give themselves the upper edge is by winning every single game before Week 18. So I'm going to go with Tua.
All right. So before you jump in, Rich, I'm just looking at the fantasy points for each of these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Tua. So the last 5 weeks or so, Russell Wilson has been between 17 and 21 fantasy points per game. Tua is 22, 12, 22, 12. So just what do you think? Which way do you lean on these two guys?
Yeah, I mean, going back and forth, I think it's very close. Um, I think what ends up being like the winning thing for me comes down to two things. And it's one that we've seen already, the Tua versus the Jets matchup. Granted, this one's at home. Um, and last time he had 7.8 points or something like that, just about. So a really bad fantasy performance. It is kind of tough um, to trust that. I mean, after kind of getting a preview of that already. So I get the whole mentality of them having to compete and needing to win. So I mean, I can't say I would count out Tua. And I think obviously with Tyreek in, I feel a lot better about that. But for me, I think what really kind of plays into it, and it's just one little detail, and it's that Detroit Lions are um, giving up good rushing yardage to quarterbacks, as far as just more mobile quarterbacks, and we've seen Russ kind of run a little bit, a fair amount this year, or this season, I should say. Russell Wilson has been leading this team pretty much, to a solid chance at what looks like some competition to get into the playoffs right now. But for what it is, I mean, I think we should at least expect him to throw one to Cortland Sutton as he's been doing. And on top of that, I think there's a good chance he might run one in here too. So I don't know. Overall, I think I lean Russell Wilson over Tua.
For me, it kind of seems like this is more of a are you playing the safer quarterback, which at this time last year we were not calling Russell Wilson a safe quarterback, but here we are. It's 2023. He's going to get you 15 to 20 fantasy points. If you're favored, you might want to play Russ. But if you're going swing for the fences, it might be Tua. But like you said, Chris, you got to wait to see what Tyreek Hill's doing, and
Yeah.
kind of another thing too is that the identity of that team on the Dolphins is Mostert, that running game, and that limits the upside. At the beginning of the season, it was
100%.
kind of hit or miss, and with the rushing game being the main focal point. They were able to make some big plays down the field with Tyreek Hill, but now it's kind of, if we saw it on Monday Night Football, give Mostert the ball in the red zone and you get touchdowns. If you don't, you screw around and it kind of limits the points.
I would argue like the Dolphins are like the second or third most complete team in football in terms of offense. I feel like they're I don't exactly know of like obviously what's causing some of the struggles and malfunctions every now and then, but clearly I mean like they have the weapons. Tua's not bad. Their line isn't the worst, I believe. So like in terms of like, I like to think if everyone's healthy, doing their thing, I'd like to think they could put up a good fight against any defense. Obviously, though, as you said, with the running capability on that team, it does also make things a little sketchy sometimes. If Mostert does Mostert things, that's a term. I think he's like, it was funny. He's like 3 or 4 years older than like Ezekiel Elliott or something. He's just so good. Oh man, he's like
Pretty sure he's
redefining.
32.
Is he? Oh god,
He's
so
31 or
old.
32. I know he's
He's definitely
Oh,
defying the odds. That's for sure.
oh yeah. He's the Tom Brady of running backs, where
he's rewinding
Crazy.
the
he's
clock.
age doesn't matter. I don't know what he's doing,
For
but
him, man.
yeah.
He's playing games, dude. He's playing games. Anywho,
I was talking to my wife the other night about this. I have an aging running back. I'm in a guillotine league trying to make it through, and I had Mostert versus HN, and she's like 31. That's not old. I'm like, for running backs, it's ancient. Like he's got a walker and everything.
dude,
It's just
yeah,
that's the
his
position.
bones are brittle.
All right, next one here. We're going to go into the tight end position because it's fun. Trey McBride against the 49ers or Sam Laporta against the Broncos. Now, the Broncos defense, you got to give them credit. Ever since they got shellacked by the Miami Dolphins, 70-0, they have come back, and it's actually a tough matchup now for teams, for a lot of positions. They're still beat a little bit through the tight end position, and right now the Lions are struggling on offense, on defense, the whole kit caboodle. So, are you taking the of target share with Trey McBride and against the 49ers, who in division game could be somewhat low scoring, but they're gonna need to throw because the Niners can score? Or are you going with Laporta? What do you think, Rich?
Well, personally, I would probably stick with I mean, I'm probably going to stick with Laporta just because I'm riding that wave. But I think this is a boom bust situation again. Trey McBride, I think, feels a little bit safer to me, where Laporta feels a little bit more boom bust. We've seen Laporta kind of uh, hit a floor with Jared Goff kind of having these on off games of his. So I think Laporta has the potential to catch 2 scores and really take it home for you. But at the same time, he could end up getting you really nothing, or close, 4 or 5 points, which is not going to help you much. Whereas Trey McBride, it just seems like Kyler is hyper targeting him at this point, and seems to be getting peppered with a lot of targets. So seems like a safe floor, higher floor, I should say. Still potential of boom there as well. So I mean, I think, you know what? Actually, I changed. I'm going Trey McBride.
Trey McBride has had 7 or more targets in 4 straight games. And the week before that, he had 5 in a tough loss to the Cleveland. That was the Clayton Tune game, I believe. And the week before that was 14. So he just gets targets. He's an integral part of this team. And Zach Ertz is no longer there. So which way do you lean, Chris? Are you on Laporta or are you getting married to McBride?
I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna go Laporta. For honestly, one reason, and I think if you had the choice between the two, right? I once again, I don't think either's like a horrific option. To be completely honest with you, like you could get away with both, but or I should say one or the other, right? But I feel like, while surprisingly, the 49ers defense has not been anywhere near as dominant as I would have thought. I thought they'd be like infinitely more dominant, but they haven't been. They've had their like insane looks, but I would have expected them, coming into the season to be infinitely better. I uh, I think I like the odds of Laporta like scoring a touchdown in that Broncos game more. Um,
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like there's a high chance of that happening. The Lions definitely have a good, like I would argue they're in that, like they're not like in the top three. I would argue they have a definitely good complete offense, maybe like rank 5 or something like that. Um, between Amon Ra, you have Montgomery and Gibbs, who Gibbs can obviously catch the pass. But in terms of like the sneaky guy who you want somewhere in the slot or something doing like, something funny for a sneaky touchdown, it's been Laporta for a decent amount of time, and there's a good chance he's going to do it again. I would argue that in this game here, I'm going to go with that he's scored. You're going to get a touchdown guarantee. He's going to do it. Whereas with McBride, I don't, he could 100%, but I'd feel a little more uneasy go against the 49ers defense with how they play and how they, that what they look like on paper, So that's where I'm going to lean. I'm going to lean Laporta.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, Goff needs to figure things out. He's the one right now holding that offense back. So if he figures it out this week, we can get your touchdown guarantee. It's already in the mail, so we'll see how it works out. We're gonna do one or two more here. I got Ty Chandler against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. It's still unsure if Madison is going to play with that ankle injury. He was my hero last week, and it was off to a wonderful start. I think he was averaging over 6 yards a carry. Then his ankle gave out, so that was not fun. Or you got Jaylen Warren against the Indianapolis Colts, who their defense is very, very susceptible to the run. So, Chris, which way do you lean here?
Gotta be honest with you, this is probably the toughest one so far. This is probably the hardest one to pick. I'm gonna go with Ty Chandler. I'm gonna go with that for one reason and one reason only. I find personally throughout my history of playing fantasy football that trusting the backup most of the time works. As someone who used to try and draft Christian McCaffrey back in the day when he was in the Panthers and he got destroyed and I had to watch his backups tear up the field, which happened more times than not, between Chuba Hubbard and I actually think it was Madison, funny enough, at one point as well. No? Who?
No,
He
it
ended up
was
going to the Vikings, right? Am I wrong? No, Mike Davis.
Madison.
Mike
Mike
Davis.
Davis, yeah.
Mike Davis. Sorry, wrong player. Besides the point, he did absolutely tear it up when he was in there. Like, I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna ride that flow 100% of the time. If I have the choice, because I feel like I've been burned plenty of times by backup running backs or any honestly backup player in general because their starter got injured or whatever. So what, for that I would definitely put him in there.
All right, Rich, you going potential volume play with Chandler, or are we going maybe upside with Jaylen Warren, pass catching?
I think I'd lead those Jaylen Warren side. I like to play my running backs against Indy. It's kind of worked out throughout the season. Yeah, I've got no problem doing that. I think Jaylen Warren is slowly taking over that backfield. More explosive, kind of what we saw with the Cowboys last year, right? So, yeah, no, I like Jaylen Warren this week, so I'm in on him. And Ty Chandler, I don't have enough of a sample size to really gauge him, but he is explosive too. So don't count him out. I think this is another very close one. definitely agree with Chris here. This is a tough one to choose between, but yeah, no, I think I lean Jalen Warren just slightly.
All right, got one more to finish up here, and then we'll jump into our Week 15 heroes. We got Rashi Rice against the Patriots. He's been kind of becoming the go-to guy outside of Kelsey on this Chiefs offense, and Zay Flowers, who has stepped up in a big way since the exit of Mark Andrews, going up against the Jaguars. Let's start with you, Rich.
Well, I think I'm gonna go here, Zay Flowers. Personally, I like what I've seen from him with the absence of Mark Andrews. Not gonna dabble too much into it. I know we will chime about him in a little bit, but nonetheless, stay tuned. But
Pro
yeah, so Zay
tease.
Flowers.
Pro tease.
So yes, Zay Flowers for me. I think that I like what I see as far as just how much Lamar is getting it to him. I like the matchup against the Jags. Yeah, and kind of what we talked about before, Pat Mahomes and the woes. Roger Rice has looked good. There's still a lot of question marks with that whole wide receiver core. So I'm taking Zay Flowers.
All right, Chris, final say. What you got?
So for also reasons to be determined in the future, I am gonna go with Rashee Rice to also be the devil's advocate for fun because debate's hysterical. Looking at Rashee Rice stats right now, in week 12 against Las Vegas, decent defense. 20.7 fantasy points against Green Bay, 10.4 against Buffalo, 14.7. Now going up against New England with, well, yes, a definitely struggling Patrick Mahomes, and I would also attribute that to maybe perhaps a struggling Travis Kelce as well. I feel like that offense really centered around always having a really amazing wide receiver, but when Tyreek Hill left, we realized that in reality, it might have been a bigger portion that it was really perhaps just Kelsey's. I would almost say awkward explosiveness on offense because there was obviously no other tight end doing what he was doing at the time. But now with him slowing down everything, it probably makes it so that way it's a little more strenuous. And I feel like, as you said, Matt, Rashee Rice is becoming that guy. And I would say that not only for this game, but anything leading forward, right? If Pat Mahomes makes you that guy, right? Like, I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes made Tyreek Hill. That's not all what I'm going to say here. But I will definitely say that if you're the number one receiver on Patrick Mahomes' teams, I would love to be that. I would love to have that receiver on my team, 100%. So that's what I'm going to go with because they also need to win. They are also very in close contention in their division against the Broncos. They absolutely need to win. That seems to be a trend for me right now. The team needs to win, so they have to play better. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that. That's how I'm gonna go.
All right. We'll get into those two players. We like talk. This was a reason to talk about them more. So let's dive into our Week 15 heroes. Chris, I'm going to start with you. Who's your first hero here?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Ezekiel Elliott as my first hero. Give me one moment. I have some stats for fun. Obviously, we all know that Ramondre Stevenson got injured, so Elliott has been filling the shoes. He was the RB1 last week. I want that to sink in. RB1 last week. Why? What happened? I don't think he's going to slow down, especially right now. I'm sure everyone's heard about the perhaps odd some reports coming out about coaching decisions and Belichick leaving and this, that, the other thing. And at this point, that team needs to do whatever it can to play as good as humanly possible, not to just like save face, but also like salvage whatever season they have left. They have not had at all a good season, by any means. Between like injuries and quarterback issues, right? Ezekiel Elliott is like could be this tiny light that like, hey, at least we had this. right? At least we had this sort of deal, right? So I'm gonna go with Ezekiel Elliott and keep going. They obviously worked feeding him the ball. He had 22 carries last game. I don't see that slowing down at all. He does play a better defense in Kansas City. Um, I also believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he's on a 1-year deal. So if he does end up going down or whatever, right? For the Patriots, that's just how that is gonna go. They don't have to worry about the future with Ezekiel Elliott, so they're gonna, you know, use him until that happens. That's the honest thought there. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Ezekiel Elliott, 100%.
Yeah, you got a lot of work. So, all right, Rich, who is hero number one for you?
My hero number one is going to be Isaiah Likely versus Jacksonville. Picked Isaiah last week. I'm doing it again. I'm double dipping into this pool. I've seen enough over these last 2 weeks to give me some confidence in playing him. I do very much think that he's part of this passing attack. And yeah, I mean, even though, Andrews isn't there, it seems to, or I'm sorry, in the absence of in Andrews, I mean, it seems that he is benefiting from that. It's you see more of this ceiling game last week. The week before that, more of like a floor game. So I think in between there, that's kind of what we're gonna get. And I mean, from what it was, that's between 6 to 16, 8 to 18, depending on your scoring. But yeah, it's great to see. A player like that step in for a titan of a tight end and help kind of keep you afloat. So playing against the Jags this week, Jags giving up the fifth most points to the position on the season. It's a good confidence booster there. And actually, I do think this is going to be quite a good game between the Jags and the Ravens, as we just kind of saw the Rams and the Ravens have a good back and forth battle. So I imagine a good game. Isaiah Likely should be involved. So I'm firing him up again with confidence.
Yeah, I like that pick. They've been pretty good. I'm actually going to go with another Baltimore Raven, and I'm going to go with Mr. Zay Flowers, who we teased a little bit before. Since the untimely exit of Mark Andrews back in Week 11, Flowers has been just stepping up in a big way in this team. He's got 8 or more targets over the past 2 games played, and with a pair of touchdowns, he is a 94% plus snap player. He's always on the field since week 11, and Jaguars, like you said, Rich, they're beatable through the air. And Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely play in similar portions of the field. Zay will get some deep shots too, but it's a matchup I think could have the potential for high scoring, just like you said. And it's hard to not want to play Zay Flowers right now. That offense is moving pretty good, and I think Lamar is going to try to put the team on his back, and we're finally seeing the throwing opportunities go up in a big way too, and that's been benefiting his wide receivers. So I definitely want to play Zay Flowers this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chris, who is number 2?
Number 2, as alluded to before, Rashee Rice. I love Rashee Rice, as I said. And as also Matt said, this guy is coming up to be the number 1 wide receiver for the struggling offense at the current moment of the Kansas City Chiefs. Definitely something that they needed. He had 10 targets last game, 9 the game before that, and then 10 in week 12. I don't see that going down. I actually see that going up. I think they understand the formula that they need that has worked for them in the past is that they need someone there to truly take the helm at the wide receiver core, especially with Travis Kelce not doing that great. This could be the guy, especially going to playoffs, right? Where we assume that they're going to get there. I don't think they're locked yet. I don't believe, but we're assuming that they get there. And they definitely need to figure it all out before then. So I would say that sticking with Rashee Rice this week, going to New England, big game, right? Back and forth. I say back and forth, but now that I think about Patriots offense is really not that great. I don't know why I said that. Sorry, guys. I'm expecting this. This is actually more of a defensive game for them. Patriots defense is pretty fine. They're okay. So truthfully, this is the test, right? Especially in the coming weeks, but this week especially, right? To try and figure out and solidify who is the guy on the Chiefs. And my hope is that if it's not Travis Kelce, it's Rashee Rice.
Well, I'll tell you who it ain't. It ain't Kadarius Toney. So,
Correct.
as Joe would say,
Get him out of here.
Wait, is that a soundboard? That's
got it.
so
I
good.
clipped that the one time.
Wait
I clipped
to
it. I made sure.
wait to
Joe's
stop
not here, but
it.
he's still here.
He's
Let's
here
go.
in spirit.
Alrighty. So what's your next guy, Rich?
So my next guy is Zach Moss against Pittsburgh. I do think we're not going to see Jonathan Taylor this week again. High ankle sprain, still dealing with the all the nonsense there. So I think it's another week of Zach Moss, and this week against Pity City. I'm not Pity City, but Pittsburgh, I should say. Yeah, no, I like the pick this week for Zach Moss. I'm going to keep riding that train. I know the last 2 weeks haven't exactly ended up with slam dunk fancy finishes, but overall, I think you're going to get it this week. He's playing almost every snap. The volume is there. The passing work is there. They're utilizing him. They're using him as much as they really can. So I'm going to ride with that. Steelers are a team that can definitely give up some points, 6 most points to running backs actually over the last 2 weeks. So as of late, they have been vulnerable. So I think you can definitely plug and play him in there without any worry this week. I think a lot of that has to do with the game scripts that also played in the last 2 weeks. I think this one plays a little bit more into Indianapolis's hands, and they ride Zach Moss to beating Pittsburgh easy on this one.
Yeah, his volume is undeniable right now. He just gets everything, and hopefully he's the playoff hero that we need. So for me, my last hero is going to be a man we mentioned at the top of the show, Mr. Russell Wilson versus the Detroit Lions.
Do you have a
Some of the
danger
things I had two. I had 2 danger witches, and I got to say, let's ride. So let's go. Russ has been pretty solid. I mean, he's inside the top 12 3 times over the past 5 weeks. Had 6 or more rushing attempts in 4 out of the last 5 games. Rich mentioned he's been rushing a little bit more. It's just been running smoother. And this week they get the Lions. They've been struggling. They're allowing 23 or more points to opposing teams in 5 straight games. So you got to give credit to this Broncos defense. They're actually allowing the Broncos to run the offense the way Sean Payton wanted to run it. This is the way it's designed. Good defense, solid run game, efficiency. We saw this for years as a Saint, and it's really starting to kick over the other end and really show itself. He's not flashy. Russ is not going to be a flashy person, but if you need some stability at the position, let's say you just lost Justin Herbert to the injury, Russ might be on your waiver wire. He's worth a shot this week in this matchup. So it's quarterback injuries have been just a ton this year. So if you pick Russell Wilson and go for more of a floor play, it allows you to add a little bit more volatility into your team in other positions that helps you out. At least he'll get you at least 15 to 20 fantasy points. You can put in a guy that maybe a little bit more boom or bust because of this decision. So I do think Russ also has the upside in this matchup to make it a game. So, all right, those are our week 15 heroes. Now we got some defensive talks to have. We got some streamers to look at. Colts versus Steelers. Mitch Trubisky did not look very good. There was a pick that wasn't a pick, and then there was a pick. So it's fun watching the Steelers currently said no one, but you got Falcons versus Panthers. The Bryce Young experiment is very sad. It's kind of it cost Frank Reich his job. That
Is
offense
it
looks
Bryce Young
abysmal.
or is it the offensive line? Questions we have to ask.
We'll go into that in the offseason. We're gonna have a lot of stuff to to go over before
Yeah.
next year. But I have not liked what I've seen from Bryce Young. I think you and me, Rich, were a little bit lower on him than the other quarterbacks heading into the draft. And I think I'm not taking a victory lap yet because he could come out next year and make us all look stupid for doubting him. But right now, you can't say it's been a fun time. So he gets sacks, turnovers, offense can't really score points. So you should be okay with the Falcons. I know they blew the game last week on the defense, but we'll see how it goes. I think that they're safe to play. Rams at Commanders. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful matchup because the Commanders can't block the opposing defense, and now they have to block Aaron Donald. He could get 5 sacks by himself. We will see. Sam Howell loves to take sacks. Yeah, sometimes he scores a bunch of points, but I do think this could be one of those games where the Rams they've been hot lately, and I think they could continue it. So their defense, if you have them, you should consider them throughout playoffs because they have a really good playoff schedule as well. Uh, they have Commanders this week, then they have the Giants, and I forget who else week 17, but it's a good one. Then we have the Raiders versus the Chargers with Easton Stick at the helm. We don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be for the Raiders, so you could even play the Chargers. They're probably on waivers because they haven't been doing amazing, but the Raiders have also not been doing good. They scored 0 points last week. We almost had a 0-0 overtime, the first one ever. There's a reason for that. So one thing here I looked at, and they're probably widely available. A sneaky start is the Titans against the Texans. Now, that is mostly if CJ Stroud and Nico Collins sit. CJ Stroud is still in the concussion protocol. He did not practice today, probably won't practice tomorrow. If he does not practice on Friday, you can basically count him out, most likely. And Nico Collins has that calf injury. So, how much is he even going to play? And that offense will be down to Noah Brown, who I'm sorry, I told everyone to play last week, and Robert Woods. That's it. Maybe Dalton Schultz comes back.
I like that a lot. I'm a big fan of that, actually. Big fan of that pick, the Titans defense against the Texans. Big fan.
Yeah. So they're probably available. They're not going to cost you anything, and they could be a pretty good start. Are there any preferences on these defenses, or do you think any are multi-week options outside of the Rams, obviously?
I do like the Falcons against the Panthers this week a lot. That's the one I'm actually riding with in my one league that does defenses. But that's it as far as all these for this week. For the playoffs, I'd say. I'm not taking these. I'm pivoting from the Falcons after this week.
Agreed. I mean, the Rams are fine, right? If you have the Rams, stick with them.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, obviously, unless there's a better option, but yeah, you probably safe with the Rams. But everything else is definitely just a 1 week and I feel like at least a 1 week and done type of deal.
Yeah, and I misspoke before. I'm looking at the Rams defense schedule coming up. This week is Washington, the third best matchup for defenses. Then New England, New Orleans, and then the Giants. So,
well, hold on now. Hold on. Do you really think
don't
the
start
Rams?
With the Tommy Cutlets. Nah.
Do you think they're ready for the cutlets?
Do
you think? Listen, listen, man.
They're gonna burn the cutlets and spit them out. That's what they're gonna do.
Whoa, dude. They're not ready for these cutlets, bro.
We'll see. Oh, I'm still not in. It's I'm still on the
They're,
side that
they're,
it's a
they're gonna
mirage.
fill up at the tailgate with Tommy DeVito's parents getting serving them all pasta and chicken cutlet sandwiches. They're gonna fill up and they're gonna be carb loaded. It's over. It's like they're like sleeper agents or something like that. They're done.
Have we thought about doing that to our opposing teams? Like, hey, like let's take you out to dinner the night before. Let's just order the heavy stuff and we'll have
I always
salads.
I don't know about the night before, but I know that the Dallas Mavericks under Mark Cuban, after every single game, he would cater like really good food as a buffet or whatever for the opposing team to stick it to the other team that were better than you, win or lose, is what he apparently said, and apparently it worked every single time. I think there was they had some sort of interview with some like ex player, like retired player or whatever. It's like whenever you played against Dallas, whether you won or lost, you won because you were eating good that night after the game. So I don't know if they ever do that with football or like the night before, but they definitely should. They definitely should. It'd be funny.
Hey man, voodoo is a real thing in football and fantasy. It's you got to make moves. You got to be nice to your opponent. Give them all the niceties. You got to buy them a pizza or sandwiches or something. Yeah, maybe. But all right. So that's gonna be it. We got a lot to talk about this offseason. So we got a lot going on. But we will be back next week for the week 16 heroes and a couple other things. We're looking at trying to do a way too early 2024 mock draft for all the dynasty people that have not looked at the next year's class yet, but know it's good. We're gonna break that down. For those of you who have picks, I am not one of them. I don't think Rich is either. So we basically punted to in my case 2027, but we'll see. So I have no picks for the next couple of years. So we'll see if it pays off. All right, that's going to do it for us. Enjoy your week 15. Good luck. We'll see you all in the rest of the playoffs. So long.
Good luck out there.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Heroes FF.